You just heard Chuck's call of my defensive MVP, returning the pick 6 against Ole Miss. Jalen was on Sam Pittman Live last week. Tonight at 7 o'clock at the Catfish Hole, you got Traylon Burks joining Sam Pittman Live, along with Chuck Barrett. So those are two of the guys we brought into the conversation talking about defensive and offensive MVPs. And to continue that conversation with our good friend Clay Henry, publisher and editor of Hogs Illustrated. You can always read him as well at WholeHogSports. Good morning, Clay. How's your Wednesday?
I'm doing good. Thanks, guys.
Stayed up late last night cleaning out the corners like me?
Yeah. I did. Yep. I was maybe it was a little foggy when I got up, but I'm good now. I'm good.
I still feel foggy. I don't know. Even though if I got like 6 hours, there's nothing I can do about the fogginess. So I need to ask about we opened the show with thoughts on offensive and defensive MVPs. Yeah. My choices were Jalen Catalon defensively, Felipe Franks offensively. And I felt like I had more of a sense of how important Jalen Catalon was or is to this defense after his disqualification against the Texas A&M Aggies. And I wonder what you saw and if you thought the sort of difference Catalon could have made if he was still out there.
Well, I'd already kind of formed my opinion that he is the guy on defense. He's the glue. He's the guy that makes the bulk of the open field tackles, which is critical in going against spread teams. But I'll take you back to and sometimes we don't know who that guy is until something like that happens. But Arkansas's famed triplets in I guess it was 76. They went 26-1, went undefeated in the Southwest Conference, and everybody was saying, well, who's more important? Is it Brewer? He's the point guard. Is it Moncrief or is it Delph? And they drew Wake Forest in the first round, and the game was in Norman, brand new Noble Center. If you can imagine Noble Center being brand new, it was. And thought it was a nice place. That's the only time I've thought it was a nice place. But Moncrief picked up his fourth foul early in the second half, and they had a big lead. And he went to the bench. Ultimately would foul out when he returned, but he went to the bench and they went in a nosedive, and Wake Forest stormed back and won the game. And it was clear from that moment on that that's the guy that you couldn't take off the floor. Mm-hmm. And really that didn't happen again. Delph, Brewer, and Moncrief never got in foul trouble again that I remember. The centers might, Shaw, though, some other players, but Jimmy Counts might pick up a foul now and then, but it was never those three guys got in foul trouble again. But that's kind of the way I felt going into the season. And I think you asked me, pick the best players. Who are the best players on this team? And I think I gave you 6 or 8 names. This was back in the summer, maybe August practices were going on. And I said Coates, Gerald, Catalon, Burks, Franks, Boyd, Smith. I think that might have been my group. And I still, and Jonathan Marshall. And I still feel like that's the guys. But they lost Coates and Gerald. Now they're back now for the bulk of the season. This first month, they didn't have those guys, and they just kind of sailed along. You didn't really miss them. But you take Catalon out or you take Burks out, and you miss those guys. Now you can't take Franks out. That's a given. But anyway, that's and I guess they sailed along without Boyd. Traylon Smith kind of picked up the slack there. So, but your picks for the MVP, I think, are spot on, and you cannot minimize the middle of that defense. And it's like a great baseball team. You got to be good at catcher, pitcher, shortstop, second, center field. In that defense, you've got Marshall, you've got Poole, you got Morgan, and then you got Catalon, and that is a strong area for Barry Odom.
That's a good point. Up the middle in both sports makes such a difference. Then what about on the edges defensively? And you mentioned Gerald and Julius Coates. They both dealt with injuries. I know they brought Dorian back sort of, a little bit gingerly against Texas A&M.
he got his feet wet. That's the way I'd look at it. Had a cup of coffee out there. That's
with
the
two of them theoretically back, and I don't know what the health situation will be for them this week. I know Sam said that he thought Coates played fairly well. Do you think that there's a chance to generate a little more of a pass rush if your two starting defensive ends are healthier now?
Both of those guys have closing speed and have a little bit of strength now Coates, he's a little bit of a anomaly. He was a cornerback in high school, cornerback / wide receiver. He's kind of grown into, then played some tight end and grown in. And then finally they've thought, well, his future is a defensive end. I still think he's learning the position, and I see him do things that, okay, that's, he's not getting off a block or he's not. But when he does get off a block, he has some jets, and you see why they like him. A 265, 270 guy that can fly. And that's Dorian Gerald's reputation too. So when you do get off a block, can you go make a play? And those guys, I think, can. And I think Mateo Soli and Zach Williams are still kind of young and developing, and physically aren't as mature as they're going to be. But that's the, I think I already know your questions, Phil, because we've talked. But the idea of where Arkansas can improve and where can they get the pass rush, well, I think it's Coates and Gerald eventually. And they haven't gotten there with blitzes. When they've blitzed, they've gotten them picked up. They blitzed more than you might have guessed against Texas A&M, and that failed because they didn't get to the quarterback. They blitzed the free safety some. They blitzed Fouché, who's playing kind of a weak side linebacker, outside linebacker spot. They blitzed him. They blitzed cornerbacks, and they didn't get there. And that's sure death. You blitz and you expose some guys, and the quarterback has time, that will produce some big plays.
Speaking of Clay Henry here on Halftime, Clay, prior to the segment we brought you in here, we're talking about who faces the most pressure heading into Saturday. And I think Arkansas and Tennessee have kind of almost different types of pressure, with Arkansas maybe trying to exceed a little bit of expectations and really set itself up for a very successful end to the 2020 season, while Tennessee almost seems like they're trying to stay afloat right now, and a loss to Arkansas may get that seat really hot for Jeremy Pruitt. I'm curious what you think. Who has the most pressure to win Saturday?
Yeah, I think without question what you just laid out is correct. And I mean, Sam Pittman's playing with house money right now. I mean, it's okay. They've got their 2 victories already. They've broken some of these streaks, home victories in the SEC, road victories in the SEC. They're playing with effort. There's, the fan base is happy. Now, you lose games, and, Danny Ford told me, a 2-game losing streak in the SEC signals a hot seat is coming on for the coach. And so I understand that. But Jeremy Pruitt had their fans thinking that they had turned the corner, and that they were ranked in preseason. Now, I think some of that is because there were fewer teams that were potentially to be ranked. The Big Ten was wiped out. Pac-12 was wiped. So there's some teams that might have been ahead of Tennessee that weren't in the mindset of the voters. But they've had issues this year, and they've been a disappointment. Had the lead against Georgia and flopped in the second half. Well, Arkansas did that, but it's a different mindset because the expectations. When you have expectations and you don't meet them, the grumbling starts.
All right, Clay's going to stick around with us for another segment. I want to remind you about Washita Farms, a family-owned, state-licensed cannabis farm, processor, and seed labeler in Hot Springs Village. They sell their products, CBD products, at nearly 200 stores all across the state. These products are small batch made. The lab results are verified and published at WashitaFarms.com. That's also where you can read the Owens brothers' personal experiences using their plant-based products and how it's helped them throughout their lives. And if you're around Central Arkansas, go over to their tasting room at 3958 Highway 7 North in Hot Springs Village. You can also purchase and view their products at WashitaFarms.com. When you make a purchase, use the code WPS15 when checking out. That's Washita Farms in Hot Springs Village. Clay Henry joins us for another segment after the break, so stay tuned as we wrap up the first hour on this Wednesday. All right, we got Clay with us for this last segment of the first hour. We will crumple the box score from the Texas A&M game. I got it right here. You got your box score printed out, SmackDown?
Me and Maddie got ours ready to go.
All right, good.
The ASMR portion of halftime.
You didn't print. Well, that's all right, Clay. You won't be with us at 12 o'clock.
Can I be the judge on how good it sounds?
That's fine. Yeah, let us text it through. Let us know how the ASMR portion of the broadcast sounds once we get to it. So let's see. We'll continue the conversation here about Arkansas versus Tennessee. But before we do that, and I guess Jason in Frankfurt kind of wants to get in on this conversation.
We hadn't heard from Jason in a while.
Well, not through a phone call. We've heard him. We've seen his name on the text machine quite a bit.
True.
But I do remember he's got a voice. 877-377-6963. Hey, Jason, how you doing, man?
Hi, Phil. Hi, SmackDown. Hi, Clay.
What's happening?
Before I get into the football, Clay, I want to tell you how much I enjoy your writing, but I grew up reading your father. I started reading, and my grandfather had me read your father's article pretty much every day. I'd sit on his lap. That's how I learned to read 1978, 77, 78. Anyway, I really enjoyed reading him, and I have a lot of sentimental, so anytime I hear your voice on here, my mind drifts to your father. I know you probably get that a lot. In 1995,
okay.
I met... in 1995, I had it. Yeah, I actually had the chance to meet him in 1995 at a Cracker Barrel. I was eating breakfast with my grandfather, and your dad came in and was sitting by himself. And I went over and asked him to come eat with us, and we had a nice Razorback football conversation. Asked him about the upcoming season. He was optimistic, cautiously optimistic about 95. He thought Madre Hill would be good. He was. That was a memorable season for me. But I wanted to pass that along to you, just to encourage you in your writing. Your dad certainly left a legacy that it's going to be hard to duplicate, but I do have fond memories of him. So anyway, just wanted to pass it on. Now, on to the Tennessee game. I do think that these defensive ends, like you said, Clay, are going to be helpful in that if Tennessee tries to run outside, it won't be just a pass rush. It'll be maybe a run blitz type situation where we can effectively fill gaps and make it less make our defense less vulnerable against the Tennessee offensive line that's, like you said, very experienced, very talented.
Sounds like we're losing Jason there, Clay, but we'll put him on hold for a moment. You can answer that first question he had. Maybe he'll come back. Go for it.
Yeah, I think that's there's potential for that, and I think that Gerald has been a good run stopper and probably developed that part of his game under John Chavis and was, in his first season, he didn't. We've seen such, small sample sizes of Gerald, and this is really his third season, but he's only played one. So he's got. I'm sure he's excited to finally be back on the field, and he is one of the better players on this defense. And I think that you're going to see, barring another injury, a good finish with him to really help and give this defense a little bit of a pass rush.
Jason, we were losing you for a moment there. You still around? We still hear you?
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we got you perfectly now.
Great. But anyway, I think Clay just hit upon what I was thinking, is that hopefully they can use those defensive ends in a way that will help control Tennessee's run game and their effectiveness. So, go Hogs. Again, just wanted to pass the information along. God bless you, Clay.
Thank you.
Care.
Appreciate the call,
Thanks,
Jason. And certainly the comments, too. You wrote, Clay, that the A&M game was won at the line of scrimmage by the Aggies' offensive line specifically. Do you see Tennessee trying to follow the same script?
Well, it's a script that everybody wants to play, yeah, and you want to control the line of scrimmage. That's SEC football. But you also, I always say this, the team with the best tackles wins, all things being equal at quarterback. Well, they're not equal at quarterback, and that's what you have to remember. And the Tennessee quarterback has been wildly inconsistent, and he's there's some thought that they're prepared to change quarterbacks this week, and if you were going to do it, an open date is the week to do it. So you have to be prepared for the other guy too. But you want to be able to run the ball, and you want to run play action pass. That's Jim Chaney. And I know Jim Chaney really well and spend a lot of time talking football with him. He and I have like interests. He's a fly fisherman, has a I guess you'd call it a weekend home. He only gets to it 2 weeks a year in the summer, right, on the Wind River Estates in Wyoming, in northwest Wyoming. His wife, he met her at the University of Wyoming when he was an assistant coach, married her, and their family has a fishing cabin. And it would be one of the destination places in the world to go fly fishing. And I've tied flies for him. We talk football, and then he'll switch into the fly fishing, and I'll get him back to football. But it's the whole idea is to run the football where you've got extra guys in the box, and then you've got the numbers that you like. You've got one-on-one in the secondary, or a tight end that's open. And that's what Texas A&M did, is they had the tight end open because the linebackers were playing run. And if you got linebackers playing run and safeties playing run, the tight end is going to have a field day. And we saw it when Chaney was at Arkansas with Jeremy Sprinkle and Hunter Henry, and the mismatches that they would get with tight ends on safeties, smaller players. So that was exactly what happened last week. Now, I think with Jalen Catalon, some of those don't happen. So hopefully Arkansas is in a better position with their safety play with Catalon back.
We flip over to the offense here because you mentioned about tight ends, and Hudson Henry caught 6 passes. Blake Kern caught 2 against Texas A&M, and maybe part of that was just what the Aggies were giving them. But I wonder about a viable second receiver right now for Arkansas, because Traylon Burks continues to star. Mike Woods has had his moments. Davion Warren hasn't been targeted very much the last couple of games, so maybe he's having trouble getting open. Do you think tight end now could actually be a spot where it's a weapon offensively for this team?
Well, it goes from week to week in this offense of who's targeted based on the coverage and who someone tries to take away. I think Warren really played well for a couple of weeks, and it looked like the Aggies paid a lot more attention to him. The tight end was open because they were bracketing Traylon Burks. He still made plays, but you have to be careful when your guy is getting bracketed like that. And when a bracket is, there's a guy underneath and there's a guy over the top. And I mean, it's like it's not even hard to recognize. He's split out in the slot. There's a guy on his nose, and there's a safety directly behind him, and you're trying to take him away. And when that happens, somebody else is open. I mean, it's the age-old thing. It's like if somebody gets double teamed, there's got to be somebody free, and that's basketball, football, whatever sport you want to, soccer, whatever you want to. When there is somebody that the other team fears so much that they assign 2 or 3 men to shadow, then you've got to look somewhere else. You can't force the ball into that spot. It's danger. And I thought that's what happened, is the tight ends were the guy that because of that, you can put the tight end in motion, he can come to the same side with the Burks, and if there are 2 guys covering him, well, there's nobody on the tight end, and so you got a free shot. So, and these guys are catching the ball, and you have to give them credit, and they took some shots too. When they turned, there was somebody to hit them. I like the development of both these guys. And to be real honest, Blake Kern has exceeded my expectations. And I think Hunter is still going to become more physical and bigger and develop into the same kind of tight end his brother was, because he's got the hands, guys. He can snag them.
Real quick before this excuse me. Before we end up this segment here, that was just announced here via Twitter from the desk of Hunter Yurchek, and we had heard some rumblings about this, but it's official now. 4,000 fans will be allowed inside Bud Walton Arena for Razorback men's and women's basketball kind of the same protocols in place for masks and different things like that. But just, Clay, real quick, 4,000 fans in Bud Walton Arena this coming basketball season.
Yeah, and I would guess that they're going to spread out between the upper and lower deck. It's going to be spaced and all that. And they'll have to do their job to make some noise. We'll see how many students are in that bunch. And, do you have the Hog Wild Band or are you piping in music? We'll see how the atmosphere is. But it's, we knew this was coming, and that number had been thrown around. It's sad because this is a year that they could pack Bud Walton, and we know that.
Clay, we'll leave it there. Always appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on with us, and looking forward to talking with you again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Enjoyed
Clay.
it.
You got it. Studio's falling apart on me here.
Oh, my God.
I literally had to, catch the microphone as it fell down from my stand here. While I do this, why don't you tell them about B-Dubs?
Yeah, you fix that, and I'll tell them about B-Dubs where they can get their lunch fix or dinner fix. You can do everything you can. At Buffalo Wild Wings, they've got the smoked cauliflower wings with the zing zang sauce. My favorite, the smoked brisket burger, which is absolutely fantastic. I'd highly recommend that. And also, they got great chicken wings, boneless chicken wings or boneless nugs, as Phil would like to say, as he's still working on the microphone over there. You got pizza sauce, lemon pepper, orange sauce, Carolina Reaper. You name it, Buffalo Wild Wings has it for you. Buffalo Wild Wings, more halftime.